everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. We join you today from the Arkansas River at the Tulsa Port of Catoosa for a rare behind-the-scenes look at the business operations here, as well as the tremendous impact that the port has on agriculture in Oklahoma.
We typically ship about a little over 2 million tons of cargo through our port each year. 60% of that is agriculture products.
We'll have more from the Port of Catoosa a little bit later in the show. But first, we're learning how to better manage cattle nutrition with the updated extension Cow-culator. Here's SUNUP's Curtis Hare and our extension beef cattle specialist, Dave Lalman.
When it comes to evaluating nutrition needs in cattle and factoring in the cost that comes with that, it can be quite a complicated process. But Dave, OSU Extension has some software that can help producers kind of evaluate that and work through that.
We do. So we've recently updated our nutrition software. Megan Ross, a graduate student, Dr. Paul Beck, and I have been working on it for nearly a year. And I think we've come up with a really nice tool.
So let's walk through it. What kind of tool is it and what parts does it have going with that?
So Cow-culator is what we call it. It's been around for a long time and it's just an Excel-based program. In this version, it's got a complete makeover, so it looks way different. Basically, it's just 4 parts, 4 worksheets, if you will. There's a cattle input page, and that's one of the most important because in previous versions of Cow-culator, we had 2 programs, a cow program and a growing and finishing cattle program. In this version, we pooled them into one. And so you select the class of cattle that you want to deal with and then provide other inputs, the size of the cattle, their stage of production, how much milk they might give, the breed, and so on. The second part is the feed list, and that is designed to be completely customizable by the user. So if they'll put their own values in for their feeds over time, if they save the file each time, it becomes their own, their own inputs. And if they have their hay tested and sent off for analysis, they get the results back. They can type those in and save it and fine-tune their program in that way. The third part where the real work gets done is the balancer page, and that's where you compare the nutrients that are available to the animal based on what you indicate that you're going to feed the animal or what they're grazing. Plus the supplement if you're providing a supplement, and then it compares those nutrients to the requirements of the particular animal that you indicated back there in the cattle page. And then finally there's a summary page that just sort of pulls all that information together and shows you what the results are, and it's a nice printable sheet that you can share.
Yeah, earlier you mentioned that this there have been calculators before, and industry has been using these types of tools for quite a while. But you're always, especially in OSU Extension, still fine-tuning these things to help producers along.
Exactly, and out here at the Range Cow Research Center, we do work to discover new things and requirements of cattle and so on all the time, and so. One thing we've done with the new version is incorporated the new information that we've generated here at OSU and other universities. So it's the most recent technology, if you will, or knowledge relative to beef cattle nutrition. We've updated it with that new information, so it should be the best we have available to offer.
All right, thanks, Dave. Sure. Dr. Dave Lalman, Extension Beef Cattle Specialist here at Oklahoma State University. And if you'd like a link to the Cow-culator, go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
On a previous Cow-Calf Corner, we visited with you about the need to understand the increase in the protein and energy requirements of these beef cows as they calve, as they change from being late gestation cows to being early lactation cows. And what I'd like to do today is talk a little bit more about that situation here in the Southwest. We know that the forage quality that's out in most of our pastures, those that have warm season grasses, whether it's native or Bermuda grass, those grasses are really, at this time of the year, very, very low quality and not providing much in terms of either protein or energy. So we need to, I think, understand that these cows should not lose body condition between the time that they calve and to go into the breeding season. And that's the reason why we need to understand this increase in the nutrient requirements of these cows. If we don't, then the research tells us that we can look at a potential loss in terms of pregnancy rates in those cows for the next breeding season. Research done here at Oklahoma State University a number of years ago looked at what happened when we had a set of cows that were in a body condition score of about a midpoint 5. That's on our 1 through 9 scale, like this cow that you see on the screen. And if we held that cow's body condition into and through the breeding season, we had a very successful breeding season, and they rebred at about a 94% rate. If that cow lost 1 full body condition and dropped down to a midpoint 4, here's an example of a cow in that kind of body condition, and she lost 1 full score between the time that she calved and went into the breeding season, say around the 1st of May, then those cows only rebred at about a 73% rate. That's a difference of 21% in terms of the pregnancy rates, just due to what changes took place in these cows after calving and going into the breeding season. We also want to remember that this is a time of the year when out in our pastures we may find a little bit of the winter annuals beginning to show up. This is the first green grass these cows have had a chance to eat for several months. They find it very tasty. They'll tend to chase it, but it's extremely high in moisture, very low in energy density, and will not provide the energy that these cows need in order to maintain body condition. That's why I think it's important that we continue feeding our energy cubes, or make sure that they have adequate quality, high quality grass hay that's available to them basically 24/7 in order to maintain that body condition. I think it's so important. I understand that this extra feed has some value and cost us some money, but it will not look as expensive to you as if you compare a 21% calf loss in terms of pregnancy rates in this upcoming breeding season. So let's keep that in mind as we go through this part of March and April and towards the upcoming breeding season. If we can hold the body condition on these cows until then, we'll have a lot more successful breeding season and a better calf crop next year. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Talking spiders now. Most people know to steer clear of a black widow or a brown recluse, but there are many spiders out there that actually pose no harm to people. OSU structural entomologist Brad Card teaches us the difference.
The black widow spider really likes to be in enclosed areas, in boxes, spaces between firewood piles, anywhere it can kind of hide and build a small web. Oklahoma, there's large populations of brown recluse throughout the entire state, can build up in large numbers into the hundreds or thousands, especially in abandoned houses, or say a house that's been for sale for several months and no one's been living in it. They can build up in extremely large numbers. You won't really see that happen with black widows, which are more solitary, and you may just find a few. Egg cases are circular, spherical egg cases, whereas the brown recluse spider, its egg cases are pasted on the side of a board or a wall or a hidden area, and they look like little Hershey's Kisses, except they're white. They're not globular. And so the brown recluse spider, because it's called a recluse, it's reclusive. It's also called a corner spider. It hides out in corners, any area it can hide, like under a dresser, under a bed. It is not aggressive, but it is a rapid mover. If you catch it out on a wall and you try and capture it, it can move very rapidly, whereas you won't find black widows off their webs very often. And there's also wolf spiders that get in the house. There's cellar spiders that get in the house. All these other spiders, venom is not something that a human has to worry about because they don't really bite humans. So they look similar and they are brown, but they're not venomous. but they do not have the fiddleback on its thorax, and they do not have 3 pairs of eyes on the front of its cephalothorax. There is a common spider, a brown house spider, looks similar to a black widow spider. It's in the same shape, but it's more aggressive. It attacks larger animals, like even lizards, and it's not very venomous as far as humans go. Whereas, of course, the black widow spider is completely black with the red hourglass on its ventral side of its abdomen. The black widow spider venom is a neurotoxin. It attacks the nerves, it's paralytic. If you get bitten by a black widow spider, within 5 or 10 minutes, you'll have severe pain, almost a severe burning sensation, but you don't get the dead tissue like you do with a brown recluse spider. So you have a neurotoxin in the black widow spider, but you have a cytolytic toxin which kills cells and tissues. You can get open sores and infections, whereas you normally won't see that with a black widow spider. Yeah, if you get any kind of spider infestation, it's always good to call a pest management professional. For more information about spiders in general, and go to the SUNUP site, and they'll also have references to different spiders in Oklahoma.
We're joined now by Amy Hagerman, our ag policy specialist. Amy, if March could be summed up in one word in your world, it would be deadlines.
Absolutely, yes. There are a lot of deadlines that happen in March for a lot of different things for our producers. Some of them they're used to dealing with every year, like their crop insurance, spring planting deadlines that they'll have this month. But others are pretty unique to this month and this year specifically. The big one being those ARC and PLC deadlines that we've talked about before. That's March 15th. Producers need to be sure they have their appointments scheduled with their local FSA office by March 15th to get in there and enroll for ARC and PLC. Another thing to think about is the PLC yield update. This has a different deadline than the ARC and PLC enrollment and election, that March 15th. Producers have until September 30th to make the decision whether or not to update their PLC yield for the 2020 crop year. It doesn't apply to the 2019 crop year, which is why we get this extended deadline.
What other programs are also on the horizon, right on the heels of that?
Absolutely, conservation programs. Here in Oklahoma, we're really a leader in the no-till and the soil health and cover crops areas. We've taken a lot of advantage of some of the natural resource conservation programs like the EQIP program, but especially right now, we talk about the Conservation Stewardship Program. For both continuing contracts and for new contracts, the deadline is at the end of March for the CSP program. These just help you put some of those good conservation practices in place on your farm. A change in this farm bill is those CSP contracts don't automatically renew. So you are going to have to go in and talk to NRCS if you have an existing CSP contract that you want to continue on.
A lot of information to sort out, of course, but there is a handy decision tool available for folks to use to figure all of that out.
Absolutely. For those producers who are still trying to figure out the ARC versus PLC decision and also the effect of crop insurance in that decision, our Farm Bill decision tool that we built jointly with Kansas State University is available online. All you have to do is fill in the information on each of the farms that are eligible for ARC and PLC, your expectation of prices and yields on your farm, and it will provide you with an estimate of what the projected payments for 2019 and 2020 could be for your crops in your county on your farm.
Okay, great reminder. Please use it, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks a lot, Amy. We will see you again soon. And for a link to that decision tool that Amy mentioned, go to sunup.okstate.edu.
Hi, Wes Lee with the weekly Mesonet weather report. It was a great week of weather for those needing to dry out a little this week. The average air temperature finally moved back above the long-term average for the state on February 28th and has mostly stayed that way since. You can see the long-term average temperature shown here by the blue fill and the daily statewide average air temperature with the dark line. Relative humidity has also been relatively low, as shown here on this U.S. map from Wednesday afternoon. Most of Oklahoma was in the 20s and 30s. This, along with some bright sunshine and breezy conditions, allowed for the waterlogged soils over much of the state to start the drying process. This map shows one-day average percent plant available water at the 4-inch depth under sod. While the eastern third of the state is still at or near 100%, most of the western two-thirds shows numbers that are starting to allow normal farming activities. Top dressing wheat and farm tillage operations are starting to happen to prepare for the upcoming spring planting season. Short-term forecasts indicate we should continue this drying trend. While it will be appreciated by most, we need to be hopeful that rainfall intervals do not get too far stretched out. Now here's Gary with a look at a warm forecast for next week.
Thanks, Wes, and good morning, everyone. Well, we're now into climatological spring, which runs from March through May. We're out of winter. It's been a very warm winter. We haven't gotten enough precipitation across western Oklahoma, so we are sort of teetering on the edge of starting to see that drought expand across parts of the southwest as we go up into the northwest. Let's take a look at the latest data, see what we have. We have that area of drought up in the far western panhandle. That's moderate to severe drought, a little bit of abnormally dry conditions surrounding it. And then we have that area, very persistent area that's been there since last summer, down in the far southwest of moderate drought, and then the abnormally dry conditions, which actually expanded a little bit to the east this week, farther into Grady County and Comanche County. Again, those are areas we're watching for drought development. As we get into southeastern Oklahoma, they've had some pretty good rains up into the northeast. They can withstand a little bit of dryness. As we get into southwest Oklahoma, we see less than an inch of rain for the last 30 days, but that does expand all across the western half of the state. What's the percent of rainfall we received? Because compared to normal, well, we can see right down there in Comanche and Caddo counties, less than 40% of rainfall as we get close to Medicine Park, the Mesonet site there. But all across western Oklahoma up into the central parts of the state, that dryness is expanding in those areas. And it's not just the fact that we have a little bit of rain here and there, we don't have any significant rains on any given day. So if we look at the consecutive days with less than a quarter inch of rainfall, this is from the Oklahoma Mesonet as well, we see we're now up to close to 20 days, and in the far southwest we're getting up close to 50 days. So we get a little bit of small rainfalls here and there that make up those totals, but we don't get any significant rainfalls that really get to soak in. If we look at the outlook for next week, we see greatly increased odds of above normal temperatures. So that's going to put pressure on that moisture, any moisture on the surface or in the top layers of that soil, or we are going to have a little bit of problem across western Oklahoma, at least in the near future. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
We're now into March, and Kim, we're only about 4 months away from when the combines are going to be rolling. What's it going to take financially for producers to make it to the finish line?
Well, some producers still have to put down the top dress. I've visited with them. 75 to 80% of that nitrogen's down. If they've got to put it down, it's going to cost around $15 to $20 an acre. They need to scout their fields. If they need a fungicide, it's going to cost $10 to $20 an acre on that. Harvesting, they estimate that around $30 to $35. So if you take a midpoint of all of those, it's about $65 an acre left with the nitrogen. And if you got 40 bushels per acre, that's a break even or an additional cost of about $1.63. Now some fields may have broadleaf problems in there that they have to come and spray, and if they have to do that, that costs somewhere around $15 an acre.
With all of those numbers and the price of wheat where it has been, can producers make a profit?
Well, I don't know if they can afford not to do these procedures if they need it. They're either wheat producers or they're not, and if they produce wheat, they need to produce a quality product. And if to do that, they've got to put down the nitrogen, and they've got to put down the fungicides and use the resources. In other words, are they going to manage that crop or not?
Right.
Now, what should they do there? They've definitely got to scout the fields. If they need the fungicides, they got to get it down early. They can't wait till they see somebody else do it. Said, whoops, I need to get on that list. By then it's too late. So they got to manage if it's needed. It's not going to be profitable if they don't do it.
Now, looking into Kim Anderson patented crystal ball for wheat prices, what do you think the price of wheat will be, say, in late June, early July?
Well, the best thing to look at is what you can forward contract it for right now. Snyder, Southern Oklahoma, a minus 40-cent basis, around $4.20 forward contract right now. If you look up around Medford, Burlington, Tacoma, that area, about a minus 22 off that July contract, around $4.40. Of course, that 440 is right at break even. I think if they got test weight and protein, they're probably going to have a higher price than that.
And going back to the early part of the interview, do you think that there is that management practice in there where producers can still make a profit off of that price of forward contracted wheat?
Well, I like the research that Dr. Arnell's done on the green strips and on the applying the nitrogen timely to get that protein. And if you look at that protein premium from ordinary wheat around 11 protein to say 12.4, you got about a 50-cent premium for that protein right now. So yeah, I think that management can pay off if you do it right and get the timing in there.
So you're either a wheat producer or you're not.
That's exactly correct.
Dr. Kim Anderson, Grain Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
If you've been in the cattle business for very long, you've probably had a calf that we refer to as having weak calf syndrome or dummy calf. These calves are reluctant to get up, stand, nurse, usually are very poor doers, and most of them will usually die. Now, there are many causes of this. One of the more common causes is dystocia or calving difficulty. And what happens during this process is these calves become hypoxic, and it can actually result in anoxia, where they have very low oxygen levels. These low oxygen levels will result in a low blood pH, and if it takes a considerable amount of time, you'll actually have this calf break down its own tissue to supply energy to itself, and then you get an increase in L-lactate, which results in a metabolic acidosis. So acidotic calves, we know, are more prone to be ill, they're more prone to die, and they have problems with colostrum absorption. So how do we know a calf is acidotic? One of the most common causes would be dystocia, as we've talked about. If you have a cow that has problems calving, then that should alert you that this calf may be acidotic. So what do we do with these calves if we think we've got a calf with acidosis? If we're having that difficult birth, the most important thing is we want to get this calf to breathe. So once the calf is born, we want to get that calf set up on his sternum. We want to clear that mouth, clear the nostrils. We want to get a piece of grass or a piece of straw and really stimulate those nostrils to get this calf to cough and sneeze and get him to breathe. We want to rub this calf vigorously. We want to get this calf dry, because one of the problems with these calves is a lot of times they're not willing to shiver, so they can get cold pretty quickly. So we want to get them dried off. We'd like to protect them from the elements as much as possible. And probably the most important thing is we want to get some colostrum in that calf quickly. If you'd like some more information about acidosis in calves, just go to sunup.okstate.edu.
Finally today, how the Port of Catoosa connects Oklahoma agriculture to the rest of the world.
Ask the typical person about Oklahoma exports, and a massive shipping port usually doesn't come to mind.
We've got about 2,500 acres here, 70 different businesses located here.
But the Tulsa Port of Catoosa is a busy place.
We typically ship about a little over 2 million tons of cargo through our port each year. 60% of that is agriculture products. Could be wheat, soybean, dry fertilizer, liquid fertilizer. We have a company that brings in tank barges full of molasses that's used for cattle feed. So a lot of agriculture connection.
In fact, the Port of Catoosa has been in operation for almost 50 years.
Our first barge came in January 21st, 1971. It was carrying 650 tons of newsprint. We don't ship a lot of newsprint today, but back then it was a very important commodity.
While the commodities may have changed, the Port of Catoosa has become an essential part of Oklahoma's economy with a worldwide impact.
Export is a very important part of Oklahoma's agriculture, and to have a means to be able to do that efficiently and effectively is really important for Oklahoma.
With the cost of food production increasing, the Port of Catoosa provides producers with a more cost-effective option for exports.
It's literally 1/5 the cost to ship wheat and soybean to Louisiana by barge versus truck. So farmers need that margin to make that profit.
With over 78,000 farms in Oklahoma, it takes a lot of manpower to ensure the port functions properly, which is why students from across the state have come to learn more about this important asset and its connection to agriculture.
I honestly didn't even know this was a place here that we had in Oklahoma. I didn't know we had a waterway that could push barges. I didn't know how much barges could hold and how many you could push with just one towboat.
Riley Smith, an FFA member from Oolaga, caught the attention of the port with her Facebook page, Ag It On, where she covers agricultural topics throughout the state.
The Port of Catoosa heard about that and they wanted someone to do their video for this career show. So they talked to my ag teacher and Miss Smith got this thing for me where I came and videoed for them, and I put this video together to help show everyone that came to this like what this port's about, like some companies that work here and everything like that.
As demand for agricultural products increases, the port provides insight into career options for Oklahoma's future workforce.
Them having the opportunity to learn about the history of the place, the impact financially that it makes on the state, also getting to meet with some of the employers that are right here at the Port of Catoosa, this could spark their interest to them follow up and do more research, or maybe come in and talk to these companies once they turn 18 to get a job.
So they're the next generation. We need them to understand why it's important and why they need to protect it and use it.
In Rogers County, I'm Ed Barron.
And that'll do it for us this week. Remember, you can find us anytime at sunup.okstate.edu, and also follow us on YouTube and social media. From along the Arkansas River at the Tulsa Port of Catoosa, I'm Lyndall Stout. We'll see you next time at SUNUP.